Welcome back to the weekly news roundup. This is the privacy and the security editions. These are recorded live Fridays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, streamed on 5 separate platforms. You can check the video description and the website for where those streams are located. Let's go ahead and get diving right on in on privacy. From Malwarebytes, the vulnerable children's identity is being used in a tax fraud scheme. This is not a widespread thing. This seemed to be one individual case. Southern District of New York has sentenced Ariel Melio Jimenez, 38 to 12 years in prison for leading a tax fraud and identity theft conspiracy. So this woman, I believe it's a woman, worked in a, well, it depends, what's a woman? Worked in child services and was basically stealing the identity of children involved in child services and then selling those to people to claim as minors on their taxes, realizing that the low-income people often involved in the system would not know how to check for this or understand that this is going on. So basically what had happened is she was stealing the identities of the kids involved in her networks, passing those on to her buddies, and they were using them claiming dependents, and then they would get a huge tax break, basically the big tax credit for having dependents, and then she would receive a kickback on each child that she I guess this says he. It's Ariel, but a he. I don't know, maybe he's got pink hair or something. He's got pink hair and he has a female muff. Male muff, I should say. All right. But anyway, Jimenez's use of stolen identities harmed actual caretakers of the children who fraudulently claimed as dependents. The press release states, in some cases, the people actually taking care of these children had much needed tax refunds delayed and were required to prove their actual connection to their own dependent children. Meanwhile, Jimenez lived a lavish lifestyle, spending $5.5 million buying properties in the U.S. and abroad, jewelry, cars, and gambling. So that is one fun reason to not share a lot of data. Of course, that's stolen from the government coffers anyway, so what can you do about it? Not a whole lot. Make an example. Well, Clearview, remember Clearview AI, which goes through and violates terms of service for every big tech company in the world, collects a bunch of stuff, says, don't worry, we're only going to sell it to law enforcement. Well, they've expanded their customer base. Now they're selling it to law enforcement and public defenders. So if the law enforcement claims that you were whatever based on some Clearview AI, the public defender can go into the same system. Basically, the Clearview AI is saying this balances the trend away from the law enforcement. So rather than saying, hey, we've done a really bad thing, we're going to purge all this data, delete it, and go back to live honest, moral lives, they said, let's just open more people in. And who else do we want other than lawyers? Yeah, so let's have lawyers and police now have access to Clearview AI in a way that I have never promised, and I'm probably in there because, I don't know. Maybe I should start wearing a mask or something and delete all the old videos and be like, what? Who's that guy? Claim ignorance. I don't know. Anyway, well, if YouTube has their way, I mean, there was a time Weekly News Roundup had like hundreds of people watching, and yeah, we're down to like 20 at best. Thank you for hanging out, my core fans. But anyway, from Wired, this was a funny article. Of course, Wired is a left-wing rag, of course. The ungodly surveillance of anti-porn shameware apps. I mean, I may or may not be in Washington. I might still be in Idaho. And, of course, in the state of Idaho right now, the school systems are pushing out programs for your third graders teaching porn awareness. Not like, hey, this is bad, but, hey, let's watch porn in class and talk about it. Isn't that awesome? That's what Idaho is up to these days. And so, of course, Wired tells along that line, hey, we all need to have the enjoyment of this material going out there. And so basically, this article is dogging on Covenant Eyes, which is a application. You get it for phones and computers, and when you install it, it's going to be a porn filter and an accountability tool. Now, the launching point where this article came from is there is a crazy church called Grace Point. I don't know anything about Grace Point. It's part of the SBC, and the SBC churches, some are really good and some are absolutely insane lunatics, so I don't know where this guy sits. But apparently this pastor of one of the churches had a big problem with looking at bad things. And I don't know if he was caught or if he repented in his congregation, but the elders said you can keep your job, but you're installing Covenant Eyes on your devices. Now, what Covenant Eyes does is basically it behaves as a VPN. And it behaves as an admin level VPN that when you install it on your phone, you have to have the PIN to disable it. And what it's going to do is it's going to check everything that you watch or look at on your phone. And if it's on the block list, the pornography block list, then it alerts your accountability partners that are set up that you're looking at this thing. I have a few thoughts about this. Number one, if a person wants to have something like this on them because they're struggling, great. Many people have gotten off of bad addictions by this. And I don't think it's as much, I think the accountability factor is key in overcoming such an issue. And with that being said, if you say, I'm having a problem, can you be my accountability partner? Let's set up my phone. You enter the PIN that I don't have. I can't turn this thing off. And if I go on a nasty site, you're going to hear about it. It's going to deter and train me to not go on nasty sites, at least on that device. This, though, shows us the bad part, not of Covenant Eyes, but of VPNs. Because Covenant Eyes on the phone app is a VPN. It's exactly what it is. You cannot run Covenant Eyes and a VPN. It takes the VPN slot on your device. It ties everything in and it sends everything to them. Now, the downside here, Covenant Eyes and other apps like this, they have access to absolutely everything you are doing, just like VPNs have access to absolutely everything you're doing. So Wired could have written this whole argument about any VPNs or anything like this. Of course, they would jump on and be like, you need a VPN to protect your privacy, but they have a problem with a Christian VPN that's going to block out the things for people who say, I don't want this. Very interesting. But it does raise that fascinating question. This is why I do not push a ton of VPNs. Because a VPN is no better than your ISP. Do you trust the VPN? Do you trust your ISP? Nearly every VPN is now owned by like 3 or 4 companies. And they all seem to have weird connections to odd strangeness that you're trusting companies with data that you shouldn't trust. And it raises a lot of these questions. And so that's what's going on here. But they do make valid arguments. But of course, they have this big problem with somebody's like, the church says you can keep your job, Mr. Pastor, but we have to know what you're looking at. And I think that that's a reasonable thing for a pastor struggling with this type of, call it a sin, in the context of the church. But understand that they do this negative article and just out of the other side of their mouth, they're going to praise VPNs. They are the exact same thing. This is just an article that really exemplifies the challenges and the problems. And I know people who run these things and they have been very helpful. Now, I would disagree if the church came out and said, every man needs to have this on your device. Peace out, yo. No, not happening. Now, one of the problems with this is that our phones have locked ourselves from the ability to manage things like this ourselves. Now, I could create a Linode account. I could throw on a porn block list and I can lock that VPN into my phone and basically have the same thing that only I have control of. I could do something like that. The problem with our devices is we do not own them, and we should own them. This is why I run Lineage. I can go into my Lineage device when I have my phone unlocked, and I can go in and I can manually change files in the core of the phone. I use this to add these exact same blockers into the system so I cannot accidentally stumble upon such things on my device. If every device in the world had that capability, we'd be a lot better off and we would not need to rely on apps like this. That probably should have been my feature story, but this one was definitely more eye-catching than an anti-porn app, I guess. So from the MIT Technology Review, the world is moving closer to a new Cold War fought with authoritarian tech. This was a fascinating read looking at a variety of things. Of course, Shanghai, China is doing a lot of the authoritarian tech. You'll find a lot of this inside of the Islamic countries, Iran, Turkey, Myanmar. They are doing a lot of these. Russia, China. We've already mentioned China, of course. So these are some of these factors. So what's going on here? Of course, despite President Biden, President Biden's assurances is not a sentence that makes any sense. A brain dead log has just assured the United Nations in a meeting with the U.S. is not seeking a new Cold War. Yeah, maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Yeah, he's a war profiteer. He's a war pig. Got that demented fool out of office. But last week, Iran, Turkey, Myanmar, a handful of other countries took steps to becoming full members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a economic and political alliance led by the authoritarian regimes of China and Russia. So in the group, which formed in 2001, has quickly become one of the most important forces in global politics, probably right behind the World Economic Forum. Or maybe in coordination with. But their basic idea is they want to have a world of digital authoritarianism. Because if you have guards, your guards can fall asleep, your guards can miss something, your guards can look this way while the dude runs this way. But if you have an all-watching eye and all-watching tech, all bets are out. And what they want to do is create a world where every inch of the world is monitored, every person is monitored, everything is monitored. And that is not the direction we are moving ourselves, isn't it? It's just in our case, it's by a corporate oligarchy which has direct ties to free access to the government versus the government itself doing it themselves. Which, you know, maybe United States approach is a whole lot better because the government doesn't have to spend the money on it. You know, you enrich Google and Microsoft and Apple and Android and all these to do all this kind of stuff. And then, yeah, that's kind of what's going on. They could just tap it anytime they want because they're the government. But somebody else is pushing it. So what do they mean by digital authoritarianism? 4 years ago, Freedom House, a nonprofit research and advocacy group for global democracy, focused on the rise of digital authoritarianism when it published its annual report on the state of freedom and the internet. The report exclaims digital authoritarianism is being promoted as a way for governments to control their citizens through technology, inverting the concept of internet as an engine of human liberation. Since then, there has been a common way for Washington to frame U.S.-China power competition in the tech realm. Of course, China's stuff is bad, U.S. stuff is good. Really, that's not the case. So we have a lot of different charts. Looking first, electoral democracies. So these are the alleged electoral democracies. So these places in blue are the ones that allegedly vote their leaders in, and the ones in red are basically authoritarian regimes of some form or another. And then internet freedom. I find this interesting, particularly that the most free country appears to be Iceland. Maybe what's this little thing right next to Russia? Oh, Estonia. Okay. Now Estonia's one less. That actually totally surprises me because Estonia is like digital authoritarianism on steroids. But I find it interesting that they say that Canada has more internet freedom than the United States. And except for the last few years with the banning of everybody with certain political views, I would probably agree, except I wouldn't guess Canada any better because Canada actually has hate speech laws. There's actually things that according to the law you're not allowed to say. In theory, we can say anything that's not specifically unlawful, like a threat or an encouragement of threat or danger. But of course we don't. I find that chart very interesting, though, that it does say United States only ranks 75 and Canada 87. Very interesting. And what's going on up there in Iceland? Is it just that it's too frozen, nobody cares? I mean, what's going on in Iceland? All right, so in the Chinese model, of course, they are exporting authoritarianism, whether U.S. propagandists or other observers have demonized the Chinese tech supremacy while ignoring their own soaring demand for surveillance tech. Yeah. This was a neat one. CCTV cameras per square mile. You will see China is massive. They are absolutely everywhere. Here in the United States, we really only have New York and Los Angeles on the list. The other ones up there are both Toronto and Montreal, Canada. We do have, Okay, we do have a serious problem because last I checked, St. Petersburg, Russia is not in the middle of Florida. I'm guessing that's St. Petersburg, Florida, or maybe they don't have cameras and that's supposed to be over here in St. Petersburg, Russia. I don't know. You let me know. I can just tell you St. Petersburg, Russia is not in the panhandle of Florida. I mean, whatever. There's Mexico has some, and then a few other spattering. Of course, Sydney and Melbourne both have a lot of CCTV. There's Moscow, London, England, of course, Paris, Madrid. Your big capitals tend to have a lot, but not a lot across most of the United States, which is, hey, that's maybe slightly comforting. Chinese surveillance platforms are used for policing and public security. Look at this. Isn't this exciting? Over here in Russia, we have some. We have obviously China, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, just all sorts of places around the country, including Mexico, are using Chinese surveillance platforms for policing and public security. All right, these are Chinese camera systems outside of China. Yikes, they're all over the place. See if we can find if St. Petersburg is back down there again. So basically they're looking at, internet blackouts. That whole state of California should be there. The internet doesn't work without power, just saying. But this is where countries have turned off internet or access to data. So it's a very fascinating story over there at MIT Technology Review. But it is true. There is a lot of battling back and forth about all of these different factors and all these different things. And so we have to keep this in mind. And this is the reason why we need to use free and open source technologies. We need to not rely on technology as much. We need to get back into places like I often find myself where, it was great yesterday. I mean, I wanted to get the stream going, but at the same time, it was so nice being disconnected. I took a walk through the mountains without any signals anywhere around, and it was totally awesome. Of course, what I did, I read a Kindle book. I brought tech with me. Well, if you want to help support the channel, we do have affiliates today. We are highlighting A2 Hosting. I use this for managing a lot of different clients over the years. So you can get your basic starter plan for $3 a month. You can go all the way up to dedicated servers at $105 a month. There's managed WordPress, which I would not recommend doing, but hey, it is an option if you want it. There's managed VPSs, Turbo Boost hosting, all sorts of fun things. tlm.li/A2H is the link for that. You can head on over there and pick up a hosting package, and that will help support the channel. Well, let's get on over to security news. First up, scammers are sending fake energy bill support texts. So basically, in this crazy energy crunch, some people are, of course, falling behind on some of the bills. Of course, right now in the great recession that we're celebrating, not a recession. Go figure, the White House. But basically, a lot of people are taking out more credit than ever before for basic needs. And so in the midst of all of this, some people were getting energy bill scams. They looked like they came from your energy bill. It was something about a discount. You follow in the information. Basically, you're giving it everything they need to phish you. And that's all they're doing. They're going to start with a variety of personal information. Then they get your credit card. They get your credit card information. I'm going to fall over and die here. And then, of course, how to avoid the scams. Well, the power companies, unless you've signed up for some stupid program, which I'd encourage you not to, they're not going to be calling or texting you. This is one of the reasons I don't use texting for anything. It's like, send me snail mail, period. And then I just hope to never hear from you because my mailbox is 2,000 miles away from me right now. Sorry. All right, so how to avoid scams, though. Phone calls, emails, or random SMS messages asking for payment information are not going to be legitimate. You should never be asked for login details for your online accounts from a cold caller. If you receive an unexpected call about energy prices, rebates, insist on calling them back on their official phone number. These are all important things to keep in mind. I actually had a case once where somebody stole my debit card number, and I get a call from the bank. and they're like, hello, somebody's stealing your account number. Can I have your account number? I said, I'll call you back. I hung up the phone. I looked at the card on the back, the number on the back of my card. I called that number. I called them back, and it was a legitimate call. They did legitimately call me, but I'm not going to respond to you cold calling me and asking me for information. I said, I will call you back, and I called them right back. And indeed, it was legitimate that somebody did actually steal my number, was attempting to charge like $10,000 in iTunes gift cards or something insane. Clearly not something I have ever done or would ever do. So, they caught it. They called me. It was a legitimate call, but I'm not going to trust even what seems like a legitimate call. I'm not going to trust it. And what I did instead is I hung up the phone. I called them right back, and I found that it was legitimate based on calling the number on the back of the card, and then we fixed everything. That's the type of approach that you should take in a case like this. Well, anyone out there using medical devices, Mini-Med 600 insulin pumps have a vulnerability where somebody can get in there and start messing with your insulin doses. The saving grace of it is they would need to be in close proximity to you at the time you are syncing your device with whatever other device you are syncing it with. So it basically behaves as a man-in-the-middle type attack when you are in close proximity, syncing and pairing your device with other things. But if somebody were able to get in here and take this, they can get in there and they can actually start messing with your insulin levels, your glucose levels, and all sorts of other fun things like that. So if you happen to have a Mini-Med 600 series pump, contact the company for a patch, or they're doing something with it. I forget what it is. All right, well, 350,000 open source projects are likely at risk from a Python vulnerability. The fun thing is this vulnerability was discovered 15 years ago, marked as medium, and never dealt with. And so this ended up getting packaged and rolled into thousands and thousands, and you can see here over 100,000, over 300,000 projects, all because of one vulnerability in 2007 that was marked as medium and never patched. So due to the vulnerability went up unpatched 15 years ago in a main software supply chain, hundreds of thousands of pieces of software are vulnerable to an attack. Like the events of Log4j, every organization needs to determine if and how it is affected. Of course, it was rediscovered more recently as people were auditing some extra code, and basically allows a full backdoor into whatever application is using it. So update those Python scripts, everyone. Yay! And I gotta say, Arch did finally fix the problem with the K word, that I can finally upgrade my Python. I had to hold back Python for quite a long time because of a conflict with the K word application. And with that being said, they did finally patch everything, and I can upgrade Python now. Yay! Better snakes than that diamondback I almost stepped on the other day. True story. I got rattled at by a rattlesnake the other day. That was fun. All right, on to our feature story in security. LinkedIn smart links are being used to send users to phishing sites. So LinkedIn, which is that group that I will not be part of now that Microsoft has bought it. I had a LinkedIn account and I deleted it as soon as Microsoft got involved. So what they say is there is a premium feature called Smart Links where you can pass links to people and then you get a detailed analytics platform as to have people looked at them. It's great for your bosses that want to spy on you and make sure that you downloaded and then looked at the files that they sent you before the meeting, things like that. But people are getting in and using these as phishing and malware spreading because since it's LinkedIn owned by Microsoft, smart links bypass all email filters. Isn't that great? So scammers get in there, and since these are bypassing all email filters, people are using them to phish thousands of different documents, and then they can get all sorts of analytics about who's actually looking at them. Isn't that great? Wonderful for you, LinkedIn and Microsoft. Once again, top-notch security from Redmond. Well, if you'd like to help support the channel, we do have a Subscribestar page, subscribestar.com/switchedtolinux. You can join us on over there to help support the channel. Of course, if you are on Subscribestar, actually, no, I did not put the notice out on Subscribestar, no stream last night. I did send that out to the email list. So everyone who's regularly on is on the email list. I did send it out to them, and I didn't have internet, so I couldn't put it there. Had internet on my phone. That is about it. All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Thank you for watching this video from SwitchedToLinux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.